It's been 20 years since Doctor Who was reborn. On March 26, 2005, the blue box returned. The TARDIS reappeared on British television for the first time in nearly 2 decades. Not as a relic of the past, but as a new beginning, a reinvention, a resurrection. And standing at the heart of that new era was a different kind of Doctor. Lean, haunted, charismatic, but broken, the Ninth Doctor, and in less than 3 months, he was gone. It was over before it began. No long goodbye, no arc fully told. Just a single season, 13 episodes, and then, regeneration. Christopher Eccleston vanished from Doctor Who, not just as a character, but as a presence. For years, he wouldn't speak publicly about his time on the show. Fans were told to move on. David Tennant was crowned the Doctor of a generation, and history was rewritten as if the Ninth Doctor were just a prologue, not the foundation. But now, 2 decades later, that silence has cracked. And through those cracks, a darker truth is leaking out. Because Doctor Who's biggest mistake wasn't just losing Christopher Eccleston. It was everything that made him leave. When Doctor Who returned in 2005, there was no guarantee it would work. The 1996 TV movie had tried and failed to relaunch the series. The BBC had almost buried the show for good. But showrunner Russell T Davies had a vision, a modern Doctor Who that could speak to a new generation. One raised on post-9/11 anxiety, post-Buffy storytelling, and real emotional stakes. But he needed a Doctor who could carry that weight. Not just whimsical, not just clever, not just alien, but human. That was Eccleston. In interviews, Davies said the character was a man who had just committed genocide, a Time War survivor, a Doctor with blood on his hands. And Eccleston's take was immediate. Clipped northern accent, leather jacket, no frills, no pomp. Just fury, wit, and regret, barely held together by a grin. He wasn't just a new Doctor. He was a new tone. Episodes like Dalek, Father's Day, and The Parting of the Ways didn't just reboot the show, they ripped open its heart. They forced the Doctor to reckon with his past, his guilt, and the consequences of being the last of his kind. And through it all, Eccleston kept the Doctor real. Not a superhero, a survivor, and then he left. Fans were told it was planned. The BBC claimed Eccleston only intended to do 1 season, that he didn't want to be typecast, that he was moving on. But none of that was true. Not really. Over the years, fragments of the truth have emerged. In interviews, Eccleston has described the set of Doctor Who as toxic. He's mentioned clashes with senior figures. The word bullying has surfaced multiple times. And in 2023, standing beside Billie Piper at a fan convention, he didn't hold back. He said what many had long suspected. Russell T Davies should have been sacked. It was a line that echoed across fandom like a gunshot. Not because it was unexpected, but because it was confirmed. The working environment during Series 1 wasn't just difficult. It was unbearable. Eccleston wasn't just leaving the show. He was escaping it. And so Doctor Who lost the man who had brought it back to life. Because no one protected him. Imagine this Doctor Who finally returns after 16 years. The lead actor nails it. Critics love it. Ratings soar. A whole generation of kids are hooked. And then he vanishes. Not because the story is over. Not because the arc is complete. But because no one, not the BBC, not production, could create a space where he was safe. That's not just a casting change. That's a failure. A failure that rewrote the future of Doctor Who. We only got 13 episodes of the Ninth Doctor. That's it. Just 13. That means no second series. No expanded Time War arc. No long-form redemption. No payoff for the man who told us, just this once, everybody lives. In the years since, Eccleston has become the great what if of Doctor Who history. What if he had stayed? What would the girl in the fireplace look like with a more stoic, wounded Doctor? Would Doomsday have landed the same way without Tennant's romance-infused energy? Would Rose have even fallen in love? It's possible those stories wouldn't have worked the same. Eccleston's Doctor wasn't flirty. He wasn't built for fairy tale longing. His relationship with Rose was protective, paternal, and respectful, not romantic. If he'd stayed, the trajectory of the show would have changed. Maybe there would have been fewer kisses, maybe more trauma, maybe darker arcs, or maybe he would have deepened the show. Given it time to slow down, to breathe, to build tension, the Ninth Doctor could have explored the emotional fallout of the Time War across multiple seasons, slowly healing, slowly forgiving himself, slowly rediscovering joy. Instead, he regenerated, and in came David Tennant. Tennant was a revelation. That much is true. His 10th Doctor remains one of the most beloved incarnations in the show's history. But even he has said that his opportunity only came because Eccleston walked away. It's easy to imagine an alternate timeline where Eccleston stays for series 2 and 3. Perhaps Tennant doesn't join until much later, or never at all. Maybe Broadchurch is his defining role, not Doctor Who. Maybe the meta-crisis never happens. Maybe the 14th Doctor isn't also played by Tennant, because he was never as iconic to begin with. That's the butterfly effect of the 9th Doctor's departure. It reshaped everything. And not just in terms of casting, it reshaped the tone of the show. Tennant's Doctor leaned into emotion. Big speeches, big tears, big love. But it also meant bigger villains, more bombast, and less of the gritty, war-haunted storytelling that defined Eccleston's run. In short, Doctor Who got brighter, louder, and more fairy tale. But what if that wasn't what it was supposed to be? For years, Eccleston refused to engage with the show. He skipped anniversaries, refused crossovers, denied interviews. But something changed in the 2020s. He began recording Big Finish audio dramas. 9th Doctor solo stories. No other Doctors. Just him in the TARDIS saving lives again. And he was good. Critics praised his performances. Fans returned in droves. But even then, Eccleston held the line. No multi-Doctor stories. No return to the BBC show. No reunion. And then a shift. In a 2023 interview, Eccleston admitted he had read the script for The Day of the Doctor, the 50th anniversary special. He turned it down. And then, in his words, the episode got better. After he said no. It wasn't just a critique. It was a message. His 9th Doctor doesn't do nostalgia. He doesn't do gimmicks. If he ever returns, it has to be on his terms. But what if those terms are finally possible? Because in 2025, Doctor Who dropped a bombshell. In the closing moments of the season 15 finale, after the apparent death of Ncuti Gatwa's 15th Doctor, a new Doctor rose. Not a man. Not a stranger. Not even a new actor. But Billie Piper, Rose Tyler, regenerated. And with her return came an earthquake in fandom. Some cheered. Others were confused. But a small group noticed something else. Christopher Eccleston had always said he'd return if he could act opposite Billie again. Could this be the moment? Christopher Eccleston brought Doctor Who back from the dead, but after only one season he was gone, silenced, exiled, and for decades fans were left with half-truths, BBC damage control, and rumors of mutual decisions. But Eccleston never wanted to be a footnote. He was pushed. He was burned. And yet he never gave up on the character. Now, with Doctor Who once again undergoing seismic changes, with Billie Piper reborn as the Doctor, with Disney and the BBC tightening their grip, and with the show's legacy on the edge, something is shifting. The man who once turned his back on Doctor Who might just be on his way back in. But to understand why now, we have to go back, not to 2005, but to the dark years after. When Eccleston left in 2005, he didn't just exit quietly. He was blacklisted. In later interviews, he confirmed that the BBC effectively shut doors. He couldn't work with them again. He says he was portrayed as difficult. Industry opportunities dried up. He was offered jobs, then had them mysteriously vanish. To be clear, this wasn't coincidence. He said in 2018, quote, "I gave them a hit show, and I left, and they made sure I paid for it." The BBC didn't just replace Eccleston, they erased him. Promotional materials began skipping over his contributions. He wasn't invited to anniversary celebrations. His episodes were left out of certain retrospective lineups. It wasn't just about bad blood. It was about rewriting the past. And it worked. For a while. Tennant rose. Matt Smith soared. Capaldi redefined. But beneath the surface, something was missing. A gap in the mythology. A face fans couldn't forget. A wound that never healed. Eccleston's Doctor, despite only having 13 episodes, left an indelible mark. He wasn't the charming boyfriend. He wasn't the whimsical madman. He was the trauma survivor. The war vet. The man who had seen the end of his people. And still chose to dance. He was real. And for fans growing up in post-9/11 Britain, a time of fear, grief, and war, that mattered. That's why, even though the BBC pushed him into obscurity, fandom never stopped asking the question, what if he came back? Fan art, fan fiction, audio reconstructions, TikTok edits, tribute videos with millions of views. Year after year, the hunger for the 9th Doctor never faded. And then, something impossible happened. In 2021, it was announced that Christopher Eccleston would return as the Doctor for Big Finish audio dramas. This was a seismic moment. For 15 years, he had refused. Not just because of the BBC, but because of principle. He didn't want to promote an institution that, in his words, betrayed him. He didn't want to play ball with the system. But Big Finish was different. It was fan-run. It was smaller. It respected his boundaries. And most importantly, it let him tell his stories his way. Eccleston returned to the Ninth Doctor role, not through nostalgia, but through control. And he was extraordinary. Fans were stunned by how effortlessly he slipped back into the role. Reviews praised his emotional range, intensity, and warmth. These weren't just audio dramas, they were proof. The Ninth Doctor had never been the problem. Over the years, Eccleston slowly revealed who his real issues were with the production team. Specifically, certain unnamed executives. And though he never explicitly named Russell T Davies in early interviews, his tone shifted by 2023. That year, in a rare public appearance with Billie Piper, Eccleston said Davies should have been sacked. It was shocking, but also revealing. Because in 2024, when season 14 aired under RTD's new leadership, Eccleston's tone changed again. He praised the new cast. He complimented the new direction. He began speaking fondly of Doctor Who again. Why? Because the people who heard him are gone. Julie Gardner, who served as producer in 2005 and was reportedly at the center of multiple conflicts, now holds a different, more distant position. Phil Collinson, the original Series 1 producer, no longer directly involved, and Russell T Davies, a man who once clashed violently with Eccleston. Now, Davies is trying to fix it. In a 2024 Roundtable interview, Russell T Davies said the following: "Chris is one of the greatest actors this country has ever produced. If there's ever a door he wants to walk through, it's open." This wasn't just a polite gesture. It was a direct call. And Davies knew what he was doing. Because even now, Billie Piper's return has shifted the landscape. Suddenly, the most iconic Doctor, companion duo of the modern era, are both active in the mythos again. One already back on screen, the other circling. And Eccleston, once so firm in his refusals, has changed his language. In early 2025, during a fan Q&A, he was asked, again, if he'd return. His answer: "If the story respected the Ninth Doctor and gave him truth, I'd consider it, not a no. Not even a maybe. A door. Open. Just a crack." Here's where things get stranger. In 2025, Doctor Who exploded its own lore. In the season 15 finale, we didn't just get a new regeneration. We got a bit generation. The 15th Doctor split, and from him emerged not just one new Doctor, but two. One remained behind. The other transformed into Billie Piper. Suddenly, the show had introduced the possibility of parallel regenerations, alternate timelines, simultaneous Doctors, which means Eccleston doesn't need to return as the Ninth. He could become something new. He could be a new Ninth, a fork in the path. He could regenerate again. Or he could meet Billie's Doctor, the Rose Doctor, the one he sacrificed everything to save. Imagine this Billie Piper's Doctor, confused, conflicted, facing enemies beyond her comprehension, crashes through a dimensional rift, and meets him. The man who started it all. The Doctor who gave her his life. The one she lost, and thought she'd never see again. For 20 years, Christopher Eccleston was erased, sidelined, pushed aside. Not by fans, but by an industry that failed him. And now, he holds all the power. He's older, he's wiser, and he's still the Doctor. The question is no longer if he returns, it's how. Because the BBC is bleeding. Disney's grip is tightening. Viewership is fractured. And Doctor Who needs a miracle. Maybe, just maybe, the Ninth Doctor is the miracle.